This is our first video for Chapter 4. This is Chapter 4, Section 1, Multiplying Fractions and Mixed Numbers. What you'll be learning about in this section is how to solve problems by multiplying fractions and multiplying mixed numbers. You need to be sure that you remember how to find the least common multiple for a number or a set of numbers. If you don't remember how to do this, be sure to reference back in Chapter 3 where we went over this. The next several slides will be things that you need to copy into your notebook because this is information you will need to be able to correctly multiply fractions. First off, the first thing you need to know is that the top number of a fraction is called the numerator and the bottom number is called the denominator. You've probably heard this in previous years, but we just want to refresh our memory of our vocabulary terms for fractions. Please make sure that you copy this into your notebook. So if the top number, the numerator of a fraction, is bigger than the bottom number, the denominator, this is called an improper fraction. You are never finished with a fraction if it is improper. So this fraction is improper because obviously 22 is much bigger than 3. So anytime this top number is the biggest number, you have an improper fraction. To be finished with an improper fraction, you have to change it to a mixed number. A mixed number just means that it has both a whole number and a fraction. Now, to change an improper fraction to a mixed number, you have to divide. So you're just going to take these numbers, and the top number always goes on the inside of your division, and the bottom number always goes on the outside. So we're just going to go through and do division just like you did last year. So say 3 goes into 22 7 times, because I know 7 times 3 is 21. And then I'm going to subtract. So I have 1 left over, so I have a remainder of 1. So when you're changing an improper fraction to a mixed number, whatever your whole number is before your remainder becomes your whole number for your fraction. And whatever your remainder is becomes your new numerator, and the denominator stays the same. So the mixed number answer for the improper fraction of 22 over 3 is 7 1/3. Now, to do the opposite, meaning to change a mixed number into an improper fraction, what you'll need to be able to do to multiply them or divide them or add them or subtract them, you always have to change it into an improper fraction before you can deal with it. Then you would change it back into a mixed number in your answer. But to change it from a mixed number to an improper fraction, you have to multiply and add. So what you multiply is you take the denominator and the whole number and you multiply them. So we would have 3 times 2 equals 6. Then you take that amount and add it to the numerator. So we take our 3 times 2, which is 6, and then add 2 for the numerator, giving us an 8. So our improper fraction for 2 2/3 is 8 over 3. So make sure all of these slides where I've been giving you some information about fractions, make sure you have been writing down what they are in your notebook and writing down the examples just as I've shown you. If you have not been doing that, please back up your video and do that from the beginning because you will need all of this information to continue with the video. Suppose you are building a model. You want to know the length of half of a 5 6 inch piece of wood. You can multiply fractions to find part of a fractional quantity. Let's let this diagram equal our 5 6 inch piece of wood. It's our 5 6 inch piece of wood because there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces. So 6 out of 6 gives us our whole piece, and the shaded gray area is our 5/6 of the piece. All right, so we know for our problem that we need to have half of that 5 6 inch piece of wood. So if we take the blue piece and cover half of our 5 6 inch piece of wood, that illustrates half of the whole, not half of the 5/6. All right, stay with me. Don't get confused. Now, to multiply this, what we're multiplying is half of 5/6. And when we're multiplying this using an array, which is what this little diagram is, this is called an array, where the two things overlap is our answer. So we overlap here, 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 and here. All right? But our total, let me change colors here. Our total number of pieces is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Because we had our original 6 pieces and then we cut them in half, giving us 12 total pieces. So my new denominator is 12 for the 12 pieces, and then the amount that overlap, our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is our numerator. So using an array, when the two subjects overlap is your answer. So it's just the same as what we've talked about before. 1 times 5 gives us 5, and 2 times 6 equals 12. This just gives you a visual representation of what we're talking about by using an array like this. Let's look at an example of multiplying two fractions. Say we want to find 3/5 of 1/2. If we look at this problem using an array, like the one shown, you can see where the 3/5 are the shaded lines and the half of the whole is the blue lines. So if we're going to work this out, we're going to multiply our numerators, which are 3 and 1. So we have 3 times 1 over our denominators being multiplied, 5 times 2, which gives us 3 times 1 is 3, and 5 times 2 is 10, so 3/10. To find this with the array, it's just the two places, or the three places, where both shadings are present. So we have 3 pieces of the total 10, because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 total pieces now that we've cut it in half. And the only ones that are part of our answer are the 1, 2, 3 that have both kinds of shading. Pause the video and try these two in your notebook. Be sure to label it as exercises in your notebook, number the problems, and show all your work. Some key concepts to remember when multiplying fractions. When discussing arithmetic, meaning doing math that does not have any variables, you're multiplying straight across. So if you have 3/4 times 1/2, it's the same as 3 times 1 over 4 times 2, which gives you 3/8. For algebra, it works just the same, but there may be variables involved. So A over B times C over D equals A times C over B times D, where B and D are not 0. Naturally, if you're multiplying by 0, your answer is going to be different than when you're not. But generally with a fraction, you don't have a 0 because you don't have 0 pieces of something. If you have 0 pieces of something, you just have 0 and you wouldn't need to have the pieces. When the numerators and the denominators have a common factor, you can simplify before multiplying fractions. This is the cross simplify we talked about before. So if we have 3/8 times 2/5, and then it would be equal to 3 times 2 over 8 times 5, you can simplify the 2 and the 8. You can cross simplify just like we talked about in the previous chapter. So 2 and 8 have a common factor of 2, so the 2 simplifies down to a 1, and the 8 simplifies down to a 4, because 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. Then you now have a simpler fraction of 3 times 1 over 4 times 5, and you can just multiply the numerators and the denominators, giving you 3 times 20. This is easier than trying to simplify 6 over 40, because it's easier to find the greatest common factor of 2 and 8 than it is of 6 and 40. And keep in mind, to multiply a fraction by a whole number, you write the whole number as an improper fraction with a denominator of 1. Also keep in mind, a vocabulary tip, the word of usually suggests multiplication. So if you want to know the percentage of something, you're probably going to have to multiply to find that information. Let's look at a problem where we're multiplying with a whole number. Say you are decorating a bulletin board using a piece of green ribbon that is 5/6 of a yard long. You also need a yellow ribbon that is 9 times as long as the green ribbon. How much yellow ribbon do you need? Let's look at a picture that illustrates our problem. So we have our green ribbon that is 5/6 of a yard long, and then we know our yellow ribbon needs to be 9 times as long. So our yellow section is split into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 sections. This is just to give us an idea of what this amount is going to look like. So if we want to find the length of the yellow ribbon by multiplying 9 by 56. Not by 56, by 5/6. So 9 multiplied by 5/6. Now, we know to multiply with a whole number, we have to write the 9 as 9 over 1. Because we have 9 pieces of 1, which gives us our whole number of 9. So 9, now we have 9 over 1 times 5/6. This is where we can look to see if we can cross-simplify our numbers. You look at opposite numerators and denominators. So 9 and 6. Do 9 and 6 have a common factor? Yes. They have 3 in common. Is 3 the biggest number they have in common? Yes, it is. So that's the number we'll simplify by. So 9 divided by 3 is 3, and 6 divided by 3 is 2. Then we can simply multiply our numerators and our denominators. So 3 times 5 is 15, and 1 times 2 is 2. Now, while that is an answer, we know we're not finished because our numerator is bigger than our denominator. When the numerator is bigger than the denominator, you have to simplify and rewrite the fraction as a mixed number. So we need to look and see, okay, how many times does 2 go into 15? Well, it doesn't divide evenly because 15 isn't an even number, so we know there's going to be a fraction left over. So the next biggest number that is even to 15 is 14. And half of 14 is 7, so 7 is going to be our whole number. 7 times 2 is 14, so that's what we have to take away from our 15 that's on top. 15 minus 14 is 1, so 1 is going to be our new numerator, and your denominator stays the same and comes along for the ride. So our answer, while 15 over 2 is the correct fraction, we never want to leave our answer as an improper fraction. You always want to switch it to a mixed number. So our answer for this problem is 7.5 yards of yellow ribbon. Pause the video and do this one in your notebook. Remember to write down the original equation. That means write out this problem in your notebook and then show all your work with your equations and how you found your answer. Now let's try multiplying with some mixed numbers. Say we want to find the product of 2 2/3 times 3 1/4. As we talked about in the previous unit, you have to turn the mixed number into an improper fraction. The way you do that is you multiply the denominator by the whole number and then add the whole number to the numerator. So for 2 2/3, that would be 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8. So our new fraction is 8 over 3. So 8 over 3 times, now let's look at 3 1/4. Again, it's going to be the denominator times the whole number plus the numerator. So 3 times 4 is 12, plus 1 is 13. So 13 is our new numerator, and the denominator stays the same. Now, with multiplying, you always want to check and see if you can cross-simplify before you multiply, because it makes the problem easier to handle. So if we look, we can see that 8 and 4 have a common factor. 2 is a common factor. Is 2 the biggest common factor that it has? No. because 4 is a factor of 8. So 4 is the biggest factor they have in common. So those would cancel each other out. So 8 divided by 4 is 2, and 4 divided by 4 is 1. And then we can simply multiply across. 2 times 13 is 26, and 3 times 1 is 3. Just like the last problem, we can't leave it as the top number being bigger than the bottom number, so we have to simplify the improper fraction back into a mixed number. So we need to see how many times does 3 go into 26. Well, 3 times 8 is 24, 3 times 9 is 27, so 27 is too big, it has to be 24, which means 8 is going to be my whole number. And so 26 minus 24 is 2, so 2 is what's left over, that's my new numerator, and my denominator stays the same. So my final answer, turning it back into a mixed number, is 8 2/3. Now if you go back to the original problem and think, okay, 2 2/3, oops, hang on. Two 2/3, you know, that's close to 3. And 3 1/4, that's close to 3 too. So if we think 3 times 3, close to 9. So if our answer is close to 9, our answer is reasonable. 8 2/3, that's pretty close to 9. So that's kind of a way to double check your answer. Does it make sense? Is it reasonable with our original equation? Yes, it is, because 8 2/3 is close to 9. Pause the video and try these two in your notebook. Remember to write down the original equation and then show all your work to how you found your answer. Now let's look at a word problem. This one's about skiing. A student skis 3.5 miles in an hour. An instructor can ski 1 1/3 times as far in an hour. How far does the instructor ski in an hour? Alright, so let's say we have a diagram. It shows the distance the student skis in 1 hour, and the instructor skis 1 1/3 times as far as the student skis. So we have our student showing 3.5 miles, and their instructor going just a little bit farther. So the number of miles the instructor skis equals 1 1/3 times the number of miles the student skis. So we have 1 1/3 for the additional distance the instructor goes times the 3.5 we know the student travels. So again, we have to turn those improper fractions, or those mixed numbers, into improper fractions. So we're going to have 3 times 1 plus 1 is 4, so that our first one becomes 4/3, and 2 times 3 is 6 plus 1 is 7, so our second fraction becomes 7/2. So our new problem is 4/3 times 7/2. You always want to look to see if you can cross-simplify, and we know that 4 and 2 have a greatest common factor of 2. So 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 2 divided by 2 is 1. So that gives us our new equation of 2/3 times 7/1. Then we simply have to multiply our numerators and our denominators. 2 times 7 is 14, 3 times 1 is 3. Then, as we've done before, that's an improper fraction, so it has to be changed back into a mixed number. 3 goes into 14 4 times, so that becomes our whole number. 4 times 3 is 12, so 14 minus 12 is 2. 2 gives us our new numerator, and your denominator stays the same. So your final answer is 4 2/3. So the instructor skis 4 2/3 miles in 1 hour, where the student can only ski 3.5 miles in 1 hour. Pause the video and try this one in your notebook. You do need the information from the previous problem that the student travels 3.5 miles in 1 hour to figure out this problem. Now it's time to check your understanding. Make sure to label this section in your notebook, number all the problems, copy the original problems, and show all your work. Number 1, number sense. If you multiply 6 by 1/2, is the answer greater than or less than the result of multiplying 6 by 1/3? Explain. For the next 3 problems, change each mixed number into an improper fraction. 2. Number 2, 1 2/5. Number 3, 3 1/3. Number 4, 2 2/3. For the next 3 problems, you need to find each product. Number 5, 2/3 times 3/4. Number 6, 2 1/2 times 1 2/3. Number 7, 2 1/2 times 1 1/4. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I'll see you tomorrow.